The Addiction to Flavor. Chapter 5. Food as an emotional substitute. For much of their lives, many people learn to use food as an emotional tool. Not to nourish themselves, but to soothe. Not to support life, but to cover up what life makes them feel. This association doesn't happen consciously. No one says, "I'm going to eat because I have an existential void." But the body does it. The body remembers that certain foods bring relief, distraction, comfort. And so, every time there's sadness, anxiety, frustration, loneliness, or even boredom, the body offers a quick solution: let's eat something. Eating becomes a kind of chemical hug, a socially accepted anesthesia, a way of doing something when you don't know what to do with what you're feeling. And that mechanism, which may seem harmless, is in fact a deep distortion of the relationship with food. Eating to avoid feeling. The bond between emotions and food is reinforced from early childhood. A crying child is often soothed with a sweet treat. A sad teenager may take refuge in fast food. A stressed-out adult comes home and rewards themselves with the saltiest, sweetest, most intense food they can find. Not because they need it, but because they want to feel different from how they feel. In that moment, food stops being nourishment. It becomes a tool to change one's emotional state without going through the emotion itself. Instead of processing what we feel, we bury it under flavor. And because food is available, legal, culturally accepted, and even socially celebrated, that pattern becomes invisible. The brain learns quickly. If it works, it repeats. When someone eats something and feels better, even just for a few minutes, the brain takes note. It records it as a method that works. And the next time that person feels bad, they'll automatically reach for the same resource. That's how the habit forms. And if that cycle repeats enough times, it becomes an automatic response. I feel bad, right pointing arrow. I eat something, right pointing arrow. I feel a bit better, right pointing arrow. I don't know why, right pointing arrow. I repeat. But what's being reinforced isn't a solution, it's a disconnection. Because what the body actually needed wasn't food. It was rest, or crying, or expression, or tenderness, or contact, or simply space to feel what was hurting. Bread doesn't hug. Sugar doesn't listen. Food cannot meet a real emotional need. It can only temporarily numb the symptom. And when that effect wears off, because it always does, the emptiness remains. And that emptiness is often covered up again with more food. That's how the cycle of emotional food addiction forms, a wheel that never stops because it never reaches the center. Eating to calm emotions is not an act of gluttony. It's an act of emotional disconnection. It's the body trying to fix something that actually belongs to consciousness. And that confusion becomes painful, not just physically, from discomfort or overeating, but internally. Eating without hunger creates guilt because deep down, we know it wasn't food we needed. Seeing it is the beginning of releasing it. This section isn't meant to create guilt, it's meant to bring clarity. Because once you see the pattern, how many times you've eaten to avoid feeling, to avoid facing something, to avoid going through it, you begin to reclaim your power. You're no longer a victim of emotion or a slave to a craving. You become someone who can ask, am I hungry for food, or for something else? And that question, simple as it may seem, opens the door to a new relationship with food. One where nourishment returns to its original role, a way to support life, not a way to escape from it. It's not hunger from the body, it's hunger for something else. Many times, when a person feels an intense urge to eat, what's happening is not a real need of the body. It's a chemical withdrawal, triggered by repeated consumption of substances that act like drugs, refined sugar and refined salt. What feels like hunger is actually a drop in dopamine. The brain, used to receiving strong and artificial stimulation every few hours, falls into a chemical low when it doesn't get it. That low translates into fatigue, anxiety, irritability, restlessness, a false sense of emptiness that has nothing to do with deep emotional needs. It has everything to do with a chemically imbalanced system. The problem isn't emotional, it's dopaminergic. This isn't about childhood sadness or unresolved emotional wounds. It's about a worn-out reward system, exhausted after years of exposure to foods designed to overstimulate. Refined sugar and salt alter dopamine levels just like any stimulant drug would. They generate fast pleasure, artificial highs, and then a sharp drop. And that drop, when repeated over and over, begins to feel like an emotional void. But it isn't. It's chemical. And once you recognize it for what it is, everything changes. The body goes into withdrawal even when it's full. This is one of the most important phenomena to understand. You can be completely full and still feel hungry, because your body isn't looking for food. It's looking for the stimulation it's missing to chemically balance itself. It's like a smoker who just finished eating but still needs a cigarette. Not because they're hungry, but because their body can't handle the chemical crash of not having nicotine. With industrial food, it works the same way. And that's why this pattern repeats. I ate an hour ago and I already want something else. I'm not hungry, but I could eat something. I feel like something's missing. I'll go check the fridge. The emptiness isn't existential, it's chemical. This isn't a matter of the soul or the heart. It's a matter of consumption. When the body is clean, those false hunger signals disappear. The body asks when it truly needs, not when it's chemically crashing. But when refined sugar and salt are consumed daily, the system becomes addicted to the cycle, and any dopamine drop is translated into what feels like emotional hunger, but is in truth just hunger for stimulation. And the only way to break that cycle is not through therapy, or self-help books, or positive affirmations. It's through cleansing. The body returns to truth the moment the chemical lie is removed. How the body becomes addicted to stimulation. Most people who have an unbalanced relationship with food today weren't born that way. It's not something that comes pre-installed. It's something that's built. And it's built through repetition, through constant exposure to substances that are not real food, but rather stimuli designed to create addiction. What's happening isn't a character flaw or an emotional disorder. It's a biochemical process. The body was trained to expect constant stimulation. And now it doesn't know how to function without it. Upward trend from taste to excess. How it starts. It all begins with a pleasant sensation. The first encounter with refined sugar or refined salt is usually something tasty. The brain registers it as a strong and pleasurable stimulus, and that creates a spike in dopamine. The nervous system lights up, the body feels good, the mood improves. That moment gets recorded. The brain stores it as, "This makes me feel better." And when it happens again and again, that pathway becomes hardwired. The body starts seeking that feeling again, not as a conscious decision, but as an automatic impulse. Test tube false reward, altered system. What begins as occasional pleasure slowly becomes a chemical need. Every time the body dips into a low, due to fatigue, stress, or simply a few hours without stimulation, it looks for balance in what it knows, salt and sugar. Not because it needs food, but because it needs dopamine. And that's where the trap begins. The more the cycle repeats, the less natural dopamine the body produces. The system wears out. It no longer responds to subtle signals. A piece of fruit or a simple meal no longer feels satisfying. It becomes addicted to the explosion. Repeat button more stimulation equals less sensitivity. As with any drug, the body starts needing more to feel the same. What used to be enough, no longer is. It's no longer a square of chocolate, it's half the bar. No longer just a handful of chips, it's the whole bag. Not just a slice of toast with cheese, but a double burger with everything. Not because you're hungrier, but because your pleasure threshold has shifted. The system is so overloaded that it only reacts to what shakes it hard. And that's why real food, true, natural, unaltered, seems tasteless at first. It's not the food that's broken. It's the palate, burned by overstimulation. Breaking the cycle begins with stopping the stimulus. The body doesn't need to be re-educated. It needs to be freed from excess. When repetitive stimulation is cut off, the system begins to self-correct. The palate recalibrates. Dopamine levels stabilize. The body starts to crave real food again. And hunger returns to what it was always meant to be. A clear, simple, undistorted signal. But to get there, the first step is seeing clearly. You're not addicted to food. You're addicted to the stimulation industrial food creates. And once you see that, everything starts to make sense. Recognizing when you're eating from the body and when you're eating from addiction. One of the key steps to breaking the cycle of flavor addiction is learning to distinguish what kind of hunger you're feeling at any given moment. Not every urge to eat comes from the same place. Sometimes the body genuinely needs real nourishment. Other times, addiction is simply seeking stimulation. Recognizing this difference is like flipping on a light in the middle of confusion. It allows you to choose rather than react. But this distinction isn't intellectual, it's something you feel. And once you start paying attention, it becomes very clear. Real hunger is calm. When the body truly needs food, the sensation is peaceful. There's no anxiety, no urgency. You can wait. You can keep doing what you're doing and eat a little later. And most importantly, real food is enough. You can be hungry and satisfy it with a bowl of rice, a piece of fruit, an egg, or some vegetables. You don't need a flavor explosion to feel good. You eat, feel nourished, and that's it. The body quiets down once it gets what it actually needs. Addictive hunger is restless, demanding, and fickle. When the urge to eat comes from a craving for stimulation, the sensation is completely different. It appears suddenly. It's impatient. It doesn't want to wait. And it doesn't want just anything. It wants something specific, strong, intense. Something that excites. You don't want rice. You want something salty, or crunchy, or sweet, or just something tasty. And if you eat real food, the feeling doesn't go away. Because it wasn't hunger. It was withdrawal. It was your dopamine system asking for its dose. And you know it, because even after eating, you still want something else. That's the sign. If hunger isn't satisfied by real food, then it wasn't hunger from the body. It was hunger for stimulation. Ask the question that clarifies everything. When the impulse to eat arises, ask yourself this. Would this feeling go away with a simple, wholesome meal? If the answer is yes, it's probably true hunger. If the answer is no, if you're craving something tastier, something quick, something to snap me out of this feeling, then what you're experiencing is addiction disguised as hunger. And when that becomes clear, everything changes. You're no longer battling yourself. You're not saying, I can't control myself. You're seeing the truth. What's controlling me isn't hunger. It's the habit of seeking stimulation when my chemistry dips. The difference that sets you free. When you begin to notice this difference, You stop feeling like you're at war with your own body. You realize the body isn't working against you. It's just caught in a dopaminergic loop that can be interrupted. And that interruption doesn't require punishment, repression, or extreme self-control. It just requires awareness, seeing it, understanding it, stopping the cycle of stimulation. And little by little, the addiction weakens on its own. Because wherever there is truth, the lie begins to lose its power. Healing your relationship with food is healing your relationship with yourself. When a person begins to let go of artificial products, flavors designed to create addiction, and food that doesn't truly nourish, the change goes beyond the body. It transforms their relationship with themselves. Because the way we feed ourselves is not an isolated act. It's a mirror of how we treat ourselves, how we listen to ourselves, how we show up for ourselves. For a long time, many people have used food as punishment, as a reward, as an escape, as anesthesia, or as entertainment. They ate without hunger. They filled themselves without joy. They restricted themselves for no reason. They indulged with guilt. And through all of that, their connection with their body became distorted. But when you begin to eat real food, at the right moment, in response to a real need, without overstimulation, that connection begins to heal. So eating with truth is treating yourself with respect. Eating should not be an internal struggle, a source of guilt, or a daily fight. It should be a simple, clear, natural act. When the body is clean and the hunger is real, eating becomes an act of care. You're not eating to suppress something, or to reward yourself, or to escape. You're eating to live well. And that shift transforms your relationship with yourself. You begin to trust your signals, to recognize your real needs, to know when to stop, effortlessly, to give yourself what you need, no more, no less. Eating stops being a form of self-abandonment and becomes a way to return to yourself. Bullseye, it's no longer about control, it's about listening. Traditional diets teach control, counting calories, repressing impulses, following rules. But in this approach, it's not about control. It's about cleansing. Because when the body is clean, there's no need to fight. The urge to eat junk fades. Hunger becomes clear. The body aligns with life. And the mind stops battling with food, because the conflict is gone. Mirror how you eat is a mirror. Every time you eat, you're acting from an internal way of being in the world. You're showing, often without realizing it, how you treat yourself. If you eat in a rush, chances are you live in a rush. If you eat just anything, you might not be paying attention to your real needs. If you eat without hunger, maybe you're seeking something beyond food. And when you see this, without guilt, without judgment, you can transform it. Food stops being an escape and becomes a path back to the body, to inhabit it, to live with more clarity. Seedling the relationship with food improves when the body is clean. And vice versa. The most powerful part of this process is that you don't have to solve everything with your mind. You just have to begin with the most concrete step. Stop feeding yourself false stimulation, and allow the body to speak. When that happens, not only does your health improve, your relationship with life improves. And eating becomes what it was always meant to be. An act of presence. An act of truth. An act of connection.